Good evening. We are getting right to an update tonight on the two major wildfires burning in our area. There is a live update now from fire officials, specifically about the Gray Fire burning in Medical Lake. So let's listen in.
I believe that most metered areas belong to a primary residence, and so there was 259 at this point in time that they were unable to restore power to because of significant damage. And so we want folks to be understanding to the opening of this area, and I'll let the sheriff speak to it more, but we're really asking folks, if you're not a resident and you don't have property in there, please don't enter those areas. We still have a lot of work going on with firefighters trying to secure those areas. We still have more work to do around the homes, checking for hot spots. And at this point in time, we recognize that there's still risk going into those fire areas, but we also share with our community, and it's been a long time and we want to get folks back. There's a risk with not going back as well, but please, if you don't need to be there, if you're not a resident or owner or somebody helping that family, we're asking you not to enter that area, because you're gonna hinder our operations in there, and you're gonna make that unsafe for the folks who are trying to return, as well as the emergency responders who are continuing to try and really mitigate this threat as quickly as possible. So we really appreciate the community's understanding in that, and we're certainly excited to see the rain. We're certainly excited to get our community back into this fire, but we also recognize that these are extremely challenging circumstances, and so anything our community can do to help us with that is greatly appreciated. I do want to highlight there will be one specific area within the fire that's still at a level 3, and that's going to be along the west side of Silver Lake on the southern end, and it's going to be primarily south of Lakehurst Drive for the residents that live in there. And so I'm not going to talk through the very specific boundaries today for this briefing, because what we're going to do is we're going to post accurate maps back to the social media sites again, and we really encourage folks to go to those sites: the Northeast Washington Fire Information page, Spokane County Emergency Management page, Spokane County Fire District 3 pages. We're going to have all those maps up. It may take up to an hour to move those maps, but we're working as quickly as we can to get that out to the community. So again, there will be a small area within the fire that's not open, and we hope that we can downgrade that shortly. So we appreciate your understanding. There's still what we'd say is a high hazard, extreme hazard in that area, and there's still a lot of utility work trying to deal with power lines. So even though some of the threat from fire has been minimized there, it's still a really challenging work environment. So we hope to provide an update on that in the near future. At this point, I think it'd be good to turn it over to the sheriff for some additional words.
Thank you. I don't know about you all, but I've come to appreciate Chief Rohrbach and his expertise. So again, Chief, thank you. It is a good day that we get to allow more residents back into their homes. It's been 4 long days, and not only for here at the Gray Road Fire, but also up at the Oregon Road Fire. As Chief Rohrbach stated, we have to emphasize, and we cannot emphasize enough, how important it is for residents returning to these areas, that it is still a level 2 evacuation area, which means be ready to leave at very short notice. This is not a time to go back in and take back occupancy of your house and do business as normal, have barbecues over. This isn't that time. This is a time to go into the area if you have to, check on the status of your residents, make sure that you get things taken care of, but again, be ready to leave. Things can change. You see the weather forecast coming up for the rest of the week. Winds, higher temperatures, things can change quickly. I'm very pleased to announce, as much as I hate to announce, so maybe pleased isn't the right word, but We had a detective from the Spokane Police Department who was working the fire zone, and one of our deputies working the fire zone yesterday who made our first arrest of people burglarizing in the zone level 3 areas last night. Booked them into jail. 2 people, a male and a female, who were over here from Tacoma posing as firefighters, burglarizing our residences. I have to acknowledge publicly both Deputy Brooks and Detective Brandon Lynch from the Spokane Police Department for the great work they did. And a lot of the great work that all the men in the Spokane Police Department have been. As you drive through right now and see some of the perimeter units, you see a lot of Spokane Police Department cars and Spokane County Sheriff's Department cars, and even tribal resources here in the area trying to keep our community safe. We are going to keep those resources in the community to make sure that we can minimize or eliminate all the other potential crimes that might be occurring. I ask the public, please be patient with law enforcement. If you're stopped and asked who you are and whether you belong there, they're doing it to make sure we keep the criminal element out. We've already caught somebody taking advantage of it. We don't want any more of that to occur. People returning to their homes for the first time in 4 days. If you find that your home has been burglarized or has been damaged by something other than fire, I implore you, please call Crime Check. Let us know. We know in this particular case, we have a car where a search warrant is being authored and there's what appears to us to be a lot of stolen property in it. We can't get it back to you if you don't report that it's gone. So there are some successes. And again, this is very good news, but we need the public to do some very specific things. I'm also happy to report that we have accounted for all reported missing persons in both fires, both here at the Grays Road Fire and the Oregon Road Fire. That's very encouraging information for us. We are still going to be doing a lot of work. We're still compiling a list of the addresses affected, and that's going to help us with getting people involved with the right resources from the state and hopefully the federal government as they come home and recognize that their home has been damaged, what they've lost. That is part of the process that we're starting to move into. And we're going to use both the fire service and these teams here to help us identify those residences and start getting folks connected to resources. I think that's critically important. Again, I cannot re-emphasize enough how important it is that when people are going into these areas, if there are utility crews working and they have traffic control, which they should, obey the traffic control. Obey it. I had to, stop and wait for several minutes while a line crew was replacing phone poles and had trees down over a road. Be patient, right? They're there to keep us safe. So again, be ready to leave. Make sure you report any crimes that you may have been a victim of as the public moves back in here. And again, obey the level 3 evacuation zones, right? Just honor them. And not just here at the Gray Road Fire, but also at the Oregon Road Fire as well. I also want to reiterate for the public who's watching, these are 2 separate fire teams, 2 separate fire locations with different with different characteristics in each one of them. Because I know we have a lot of folks up at the Oregon Road Fire who really want to get home, and still a large part of that area is a level 3 evacuation zone. And they may be looking at what's going on here at the Gray Road Fire and go, well, I don't understand why these folks are all being allowed to go back into their areas. They have to understand these are decisions made in conjunction with the fire service, and it takes into account all of the factors that exist in that fire area. And the characteristics, frankly, are very different between out here on the West Plains and up in the north end of the county. And they have different challenges in both the types of utility service and delivery and the type of topography that are there. So I implore the folks up at the Oregon Road Fire who have been evacuated, please be patient. We will get you back home as soon as possible. And although it's great news for the folks here at the Grays Road Fire that they can come back home, but again, be ready to leave. I think, is there anything else I forgot to cover? Is anybody? Oh, and one other thing, and I have to say this again. If you have been displaced in this fire, even if you haven't had any property damage or you haven't lost a home, register with the Red Cross. Call 1-800-RED Cross. It is going to be a phone tree. Please work through the system and get yourself registered. You can also go to one of the Red Cross shelters to register. That helps us set people up with case management and get them connected with resources. So you don't have to have lost property or anything like that, but just register if you've been displaced as a result of either of these incidents.
All right, we just heard
Thank
from
you, Sheriff.
Spokane County Sheriff John Knowles. We also heard from the fire chief in Spokane County District 3, Corey Rohrbach, giving an update specifically about evacuation levels that have now been lowered in the Medical Lake area from the Gray Fire. Most of the areas that were at level 3 go now evacuations have now been lowered to level 2. There is one exception that is on the south side of Silver Lake. However, even though many people are returning back to their home areas, officials are saying do not continue to move on as though we're going back to normal life. They said it still is a level 2 evacuation in those areas. Those people need to be ready to go if conditions do change. They're letting people in to check on their properties, perhaps get important documents or other important things that they may need, or just to check on the status of their homes to see if things are still standing or if there was damage. They want to remind people that there is still a lot of danger in that area, not necessarily from the fire, but perhaps from falling trees or downed power lines. A lot of utility work is still taking place in those areas. But some good news tonight in that some of those level 3 evacuation areas are now being downgraded to level 2. We want to continue our team coverage on these fires tonight. We have KREM 2's Shannon Mowdy right now standing by. She's been talking to people who are impacted by these destructive fires. And we also want to go to our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legoo, tracking the forecast and how much it has helped fire crews today.
Well, it's a significant amount of rain. I was trying to explain this, or Mark and I were going through some of the numbers together. And when it comes to how much rain we got, you basically have to go all the way back to the beginning of June to find a day with even close to as much moisture. But even going all the way back to the beginning of June, 2 full months, you add up every single day of rain we have seen in that time, and you don't get close to how much rain we've already picked up here today, and that does include some of those fire areas. Right now we sit at a 61 for our temperatures, a little bit cooler, but here you go, watch this one. I'm gonna pull in this graphic, hang on, it's gotta load for a second. Look at that, look at some of those numbers. Now these are radar estimated rainfall totals. That's the caveat, these aren't exact, they aren't perfectly accurate, but it does look like in part of the Gray Fire, we picked up about a ½ inch of rain. Up near the Oregon Road Fire, about 4/10 of an inch of rain, close to a ½ inch of rain. Officially at the airport, look at that 0.3. That's the Spokane International Airport rainfall estimate. To put this all in perspective, I just went through and added up how much rain we actually received today. That number comes in pretty close to that 0.3, not quite, but pretty close. So we'll say these numbers are pretty close. We have another band of rain moving in. That one looks to kind of stay a little bit farther to the south. It's light scattered showers elsewhere. Heavier rain down to the south. Somebody asked me about lightning a bit earlier. That stays over in Montana. For us, I don't think it's a big concern. What we do have, though, is worse air quality than where we were last night. Air quality is getting worse. It will eventually get better when wind returns, but today air quality is back in that unhealthy for sensitive groups.
All right, Jeremy, thank you very much. And we want to continue our team coverage now at the Oregon Road Fire. We know that has now burned more than 11,000 acres, and there are barricades still set up around much of the burned areas in Elk. KREM 2's Shannon Mowdy got access, though, to go inside with one family that lost not one home, but several homes. Shannon?
Yeah, Whitney, we know that as I'm here in Deer Park, we have more fire crews setting up camp, and those fire crews that are actively on the scene of the Oregon Road Fire are working diligently to protect existing homes. But that fire that sparked Friday in Elk moved so quickly that we know not all homes could be saved, and that includes many acres of property owned by many generations of the Hunt family. So take a look. This is all that is left of that property that was originally bought by Grandpa Hunt back in the 60s. He built onto the home that was on that land, and his children and grandchildren and their families spread out across that acreage. All the homes were destroyed Friday in the first hours of the Oregon Road Fire.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before. It's just, I don't know that I have words just to see everything gone. All of my family's life. My grandpa built his house, he built the sawmill, he built the planer, he built tractors. All of what he has worked hard for his whole life is gone.
Luckily, though, no one in that extended family was hurt. All family members were able to evacuate, even though, from what they tell me, the flames, they could hear like a jet engine roaring and cracking and popping as they drove away from those homes. And the family tells me that the Oregon Road fire actually started about 2 or 3 miles away from where that family property was. So they had just minutes to get out. In Deer Park, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.